The story of Saint Dominic receiving the Rosary from the Virgin Mary is not universally accepted. In fact, some believe that the Rosary as we know it today didn't even exist during his lifetime. So how did this saint become so closely associated with this practice? Saint Dominic is known as the founder of the Dominican order, which has had a close relationship with the Rosary for centuries.
The great gift of the Dominicans to the life of the Church is preaching. Powerful, zealous, passionate preaching that moves people to action.
This is evident through the common practice of the order's nuns and monks wearing the rosary beads around their waists. But although it has been a long and strong tradition for them, there is no evidence to suggest that Saint Dominic was the first to preach the rosary. The fact is, there are no written testaments about Saint Dominic being visited by the Virgin Mary.
There are a number of scholars who will claim, and do claim, that the apparition, the tradition we hold that Mary appeared to Saint Dominic and gave to Saint Dominic the rosary, is in fact not historically accurate. And they will say that there was a natural evolution and therefore there was no extraordinary intervention in the life of Saint Dominic that gave us what we now call the rosary.
Some attribute the origins of the story to that of a 15th century Dominican monk named Alan de la Rupe, often regarded as the Rosary's most fervent advocate. For it was de la Rupe who claims to have been visited by Jesus, Mary, and Saint Dominic, all of who espouse the virtues of practicing and preaching of the Rosary.
Again, being a Dominican following in the line of Saint Dominic, he, through Normandy and France and Spain, began to resurrect the devotion. He had tremendous devotion to Our Lady. And since then, I think it has caught on in the imagination of the Church and remains a very popular devotion, again, because Our Lady leads us to our Lord. So St. Dominic's is, in many ways, considered the bearer, if you will, of this devotion.
The Rosary originally was a collection of 150 beads, or knots in a rope, upon which people would say an Our Father and a Hail Mary. The reason for this was the 150 beads mimicked the 150 psalms, which monks, priests, sisters would recite daily in monasteries and convents.
For those who wish to discredit St. Dominic and his tradition, there would have been ample opportunity to have tried to prove that tradition to be wrong. But it did not happen. And in my mind, that lends weight to very much to the bias that if someone's going to claim it's not historically accurate, that they need to give some definitive proof that in fact it is not historically accurate.
There are written accounts, and in some instances archaeological evidence, that it was common for those dedicated to ritual prayer to use devices such as pegs, beads, or stones to keep track. It is easy to see how this can be a precursor to the Rosary, which uses beads in place of knots along a rope or chain.
Whether or not Mary gave the Rosary to Dominic, or whether or not this developed from the East, where there were mantras of holding on to beads and praying, it doesn't make a difference. What does make a difference is that the Dominicans gave us those mysteries, and the prayer form has been very, very helpful for many, many thousands and thousands and millions of Christians throughout the world, even for those who are educated.
I'm of the opinion, when it comes to the miraculous, when it comes to intervention, and in this case, an apparition of Our Lady, you will know whether or not it is trustworthy by its fruits. And no one can dispute the enormous spiritual fruit that has come from the Rosary in the Dominican tradition. So I'm quite comfortable to say, at least in my own mind, that no matter what the scholars do and how they debate, that something extraordinary happened to St. Dominic at the hand of Our Lady, to which we are all the beneficiaries.
Ultimately, it doesn't matter whether the Rosary was given to Saint Dominic or that it evolved from some earlier practice. What does matter is whether it's an effective way to get closer to God. When we return, we'll get a deeper understanding of the Rosary and how it can benefit us in the 21st century. In this world, it is easy to be distracted by our often hectic, always on-the-go lifestyle. Our daily lives are filled with endless tasks and commitments that can sometimes prevent us from maintaining a deep relationship with our faith. So how do we get back to focusing on what is really important? The Rosary is here to help. It is important to remember that the Rosary shouldn't be seen as something repetitive. Rather, it's a way to contemplate on the mysteries of the life and teachings of Jesus Christ. For it is in these mysteries that we derive our faith and wonderment in God.
It engages the mind, it engages the soul, and it engages the body in the prayer. It's also very soothing, very meditating. It calms you down.
Today, we are again in a period of turmoil. We are in a period of tremendous upheaval. And we see it both in our own society, we see it particularly in the United States, in our American culture.
Many people, in times of crisis, it's very difficult to read in times of crisis. Someone is sick, someone is dying, there is a catastrophe. You can't always have a text in front of you, but you have this, you know? And it becomes something to hold on to. And I think it's a very human, psychological thing to do.
I think we are poised for a rebirth of this devotion, particularly among the young. I mean, those who have grown up with it from years past continue to pray it, and rightfully so, because they get tremendous graces from it.
Dominic may or may not, the story may or may not be true. To me, it doesn't make much of a difference, because it seems that the devotion was certainly fostered by his community, and it has been a very helpful and very wonderful way to pray, and also for many, many people to encounter the Lord and to encounter Mary through this particular prayer form.
We need a new Father della Rupe. And perhaps we don't need one, we need many, to be able, person to person, heart to heart, to bring this devotion to our young people. Because if they learn this, and they're introduced into the mysteries of the Lord's life by doing it, then I think they're well on their way to becoming active, faithful disciples of the Lord.
The Rosary is still practical for our times. It fits in your pocket and can be taken and recited just about anywhere, whether it be in church or walking in the park. It doesn't matter when or how many times you pray, just as long as you're able to find a moment to experience how truly wonderful the Rosary can be.
Sometimes you can't have a book, sometimes you don't want to read, sometimes you're too tired, and sometimes you need the comfort of the beads, you know? So as a result, it is a great prayer help to take with you wherever you are.
Mary has given us a great gift to acknowledge that we are all here because of Jesus. It truly embodies our core beliefs in the Catholic faith and has become a wonderful gift. I'm your host, Carolyn Morrison, and thank you for watching Mysteries of the Church.